The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
A man has been arrested on child porn charges. He said, you know, I really shouldn't be punished that severely because the porn was only of kids that I didn't know. This is Ronald Lynn, a Daytona Beach, Florida man. He reportedly admitted to police that he does have a problem with liking kids. He was arrested a couple days ago on child porn charges. Police said that Lynn did admit he had downloaded and viewed child porn on a bunch of different occasions, and that he also shared those child porn files on peer-to-peer file sharing networks. After questioning, detectives told Lynn that they had a search warrant. They executed it. They seized computers, DVDs, CDs, a camera, and several other items. One of the hard drives seized, police said a forensic examination found, contained an estimated 150 suspected child porn videos. He was taken into custody, and police say that as he was being brought through the police station, he said, quote, "The child porn I was downloading was only of kids I didn't know. None of them are real. I don't make my own videos, I promise. Maybe we can work this out since they are not local girls." Lynn is charged with 2 counts of promotion of sexual performance by a child, and then 18 counts of possession of photos of sexual performance by a child. Bail set just over $200,000. What was he trying to say when he said these are not any kids that I know? That he's not a child molester, that he was just viewing stuff he found online? He's attracted to kids. Maybe he got the stuff from Jared from Subway. He seems to be having his own child porn problems, but that he's not actually physically involved with any of these children?
It sounds like that's what he's trying to say. He was not involved with the production of these videos. He doesn't know anything about them, and he just views them. So, yeah, we've talked about this type of thing a lot. The law is the law, but it's a tricky situation when you have someone who might only be viewing this type of thing and not actually taking his frustrations out on children. Right.
Not all pedophiles or hebophiles, I don't know how it's pronounced, are child molesters, right? For most of them, for many of them, it remains a fantasy in their minds, and that's it. Sort of like any sexual fantasy someone may have. It may contain activity that is legal or illegal. So should there be a significant discrepancy in terms of the punishments for someone who views child porn versus someone who produces child porn versus someone who is actually having sex with little kids? Or should we just say, listen, these are all such depraved acts that they should all be very severely punished?
Yeah, that is the question. And should there be a discrepancy as well between those who download and view it and keep it and those who share what they have already downloaded, on peer-to-peer services and things like that? If they are disseminating this stuff, should there be a harsher penalty in that case?
Yeah, because he did say that in spite of the fact that none of these are kids that he knows, that he not only was downloading this stuff, he was also sharing it and making it available to others. By all reasonable assessments, that would be an aggravating factor in thinking of what the sentencing should be if he is indeed found guilty legally.
Yes, it's an interesting situation. And I'd say this guy's probably in a lot of trouble. He's going to get the book thrown at him here.
Tesla Motors is one of several automakers that is very actively planning to put a self-driving car on sale sometime in the next few years. And it seems that they already have one major customer. If Tesla can build a fully autonomous car by 2020, Uber CEO Travis Kalanick says his company would want it. In fact, he says that they would buy all 500,000 electric cars that Tesla expects to produce in the year 2020, according to Forbes. This comes not only from the Uber CEO himself, but also from Steve Jurvetson, who's an early Tesla investor and board member. Remember, in the interest of full disclosure, I do own 4 shares of Tesla stock. This is fascinating to me because now we have Uber. Uber's the ride-sharing service, sort of on-demand ride-sharing service. They are saying, we are already thinking about moving away from so Uber already is criticized for taking jobs and business away from fully licensed taxi and sedan companies. They're saying, though, that they would switch over from contract drivers to autonomous vehicles as soon as the technology is there.
Yeah. I mean, wouldn't you? If you were the CEO of this company, I mean, you can eliminate something that is just a source of stress and costs you money. People. If you can eliminate people, wouldn't you?
Yeah, and they are making an argument that that safety is one of the primary reasons to do it. One of the that early Tesla investor saying that autonomous driving could significantly reduce the number of taxis on New York City streets. It would make the taxis on the road way safer, and that it would still allow taxi patrons to get a ride within 30 seconds of wanting to hail a cab, or hailing it electronically, I guess. Tesla CEO Elon Musk said in the past he expects the company to be building 500,000 cars a year by 2020. That prediction was reconfirmed by Tesla's chief technical officer, JB Straubel, at a conference in Washington, D.C. last month. That would bring Tesla's cumulative output to 1 million vehicles by that point. They have been building cars equipped with the hardware for sort of phase one of autonomous technology since last fall. The systems aren't yet available to consumers. Initially, cars will be able to pass other vehicles with no involvement from the driver other than pressing the turn signal. You press the turn signal on the highway, autonomous system takes over, shifts lanes, passes, and moves back over into the lane. And from there, Lewis, the what word am I looking for? The ability to be increasingly autonomous will follow.
Yes. And this is fascinating. I would ask people who use Uber frequently, would you rather have no one in that driver's seat? As a consumer, as a customer, I know the CEO would rather have no one in that driver's seat.
You know, I think I would, Lewis, because I've had multiple instances with Uber where the driver is texting, where the driver seems distracted, and presumably your car is not going to be texting. I mean, it'll be doing a whole bunch of other stuff in the background. Its algorithm will anyway. But I think that that's a really good point.
And imagine if you were me and you had an Uber driver tell you that Donald Trump should be president. David, the mental distress, the anguish you would suffer as a result of that. I think no driver in that seat is probably the best outcome here.
The big takeaway is we are much closer to autonomous vehicle technology from being a reality than many people are willing to admit. Still, lots of people, every time we talk about this, getting angry with me that I'm talking about it, that it's obviously a fantasy. Just look to Canada, where truck drivers that drive these huge mining trucks are already being replaced or set to be replaced by contracts for autonomous trucks. This is happening, right? I mean, denying that it's happening at this point seems to be just denying reality.
Yeah, you don't have to like it, but I also wouldn't recommend fighting it because it is inevitable and you got to embrace it and find a way to deal with it.
Huge bonus show today. Lewis will give us his opinion on religious athletes, and Japan has created another word for yet another affliction that seems to be concentrated in Japan. DavidPakman.com/membership to become a member and get the bonus show, instant access, I should say, and DavidPakman.com/donate to access our Indiegogo campaign, which is just over a week from ending at this point.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
The David Pakman Show membership program is the #1 funding source for our show, and today's new member of the day is Greg Overend. Greg, thank you for being a David Pakman Show member. You can sign up and join Greg at davidpakman.com/membership. You get all of the great member benefits, including the world famous and very popular bonus show, hosted and produced by producer Lewis. I am merely the sidekick on the bonus show. If you ever shop on Amazon.com, you can also support the work we are doing by going to davidpakman.com, clicking and bookmarking the Amazon banner at the right side of the page, and using it whenever you shop. 3 years ago this week, Jordanian Parliament member Mohammed Shawabka pulled out a gun on former Minister Mansour Murad during a television interview. He pointed his pistol at Murad after the former guerrilla-turned-politician called him a mafia thief. This is crazy video. Let's take a look. I'll remind you what it was. Some other key words that were thrown around there obviously were not only spy, but Mossad agent, which is a favorite insult in that part of the world. Murad was previously jailed for a grenade terrorist attack on an El Al office in Athens, which killed a child. Sort of shocking that Shawabka was the one who pulled the gun, right? I mean, I think based on their histories, you would say if anybody here was going to pull a gun, it was going to be Murad.
Yeah, and is this a gun he kept on him for protection? Is this a gun that was he planning some type of assassination? I mean, it's just so crazy. Crazy that this happened in front of cameras. In America, we know better than to do this while the cameras are rolling, right?
Well, I guess politicians generally do, yeah. This incident is one I always remember, but there's another one, if you recall, Lewis, where there was an assassination attempt on a stage and the gun jammed. And immediately a crowd swarms the would-be assassin. And I don't remember if it was Romania. The details of it are escaping me right now.
Yeah, that's another big one. And like something out of a movie. It's crazy. This one started with just some shoe throwing. But after the shoe was thrown, the gun came out immediately. And it's just incredible.
If in the U.S. this were to happen, is that instantly the end of a political career? If in the House of Representatives, for example, I don't know, Louis Gohmert pulls out a handgun during a discussion about something, is that just it? He has to resign and it's over?
I'm not convinced of that. If we've had politicians do some pretty crazy things and eventually get reelected years down the road when people forget about it, a lot of people might like the fact that a politician pulled a gun on another.
2 years ago this week, a boy was killed by 4th of July celebratory in-air gunshots. Another classic case of negligent gun ownership, and it's a pretty sad commentary on life in the United States. This 4th of July, we had another negligent death. This time it was more of a Darwin Award situation where a guy decided to launch a mortar firework off of the top of his head, instantly killing himself. If you're going to be doing something incredibly stupid and negligent, at least make sure you're only putting yourself at risk. And I find that, shooting guns into the air and shooting fireworks off often put more than just the individual who is deciding to do this at risk.
Yeah, risky behavior. If you want to do something stupid and make people laugh, make sure you're not going to kill anyone else. If you end up killing yourself, maybe you knew the risks. Drinking was a factor in this case, of course. I still think it was incredibly stupid. Still, tragic. I mean, by all accounts, this was a nice guy. But really, really embarrassing way to go.
Do you remember, Lewis, I think it was about a year ago, where you tried arguing on the show that firing a gun into the air is not dangerous because of the low terminal velocity of a bullet? And then within about 5 minutes of that show going live, we had like 15 emails from people with links to all sorts of studies saying, actually, no, firing bullets into the air can kill people. And then you had to do like a mea culpa.
Yes. Well, what I was saying that was firing a bullet directly straight up into the air.
Right.
If the bullet were to just reach its peak and tumble down, depending on the size of the round, it would not be lethal.
So what you meant, Lewis, was if you fire a small enough round at exactly a vertical angle to the air, and it is completely unaffected by atmosphere or weather whatsoever in any way that distorts its trajectory, and it falls down exactly at the same way, then it's probably not that dangerous. That was the point you were trying to make.
That's an interesting way to put it. I also watched the Mythbusters episode that said, yes, if you were to fire a bullet directly at 90-degree angle to the ground, that the terminal velocity of the bullet itself would not kill you.
So that's like really more of a theoretical argument, right? I mean, in the real world, it essentially is an impossibility.
No, it's not an impossibility. I mean, if you are firing at any type of angle, the bullet could easily kill someone.
All right. So we all now agree, though, no firing guns into the air.
I said that it's preferable just to fire it into the ground. Yeah.
A celebratory gunshot straight into the ground in front of you. That seems, it does actually seem better. It seems the risk is more of just shooting yourself in the foot.
And it's just as loud, right? Mission accomplished.
There you go. 1 year ago this week, a sugar plant decided to remove a safety device. 13 days before, a worker ended up getting buried alive by sugar as a direct result of the removal of that safety device. The safety screen was removed because it was slowing down production. This was a temporary worker. It brought up a lot of questions about how temporary workers are trained. OSHA inspectors did not find the company willfully in violation, and the company was ultimately fined only $18,000. OSHA did announce an initiative to raise awareness about the dangers facing temporary workers and about educating employers about their responsibilities. Since then, OSHA has stepped up its enforcement of rules affecting temp workers, but they cannot shut down a business and they have very little criminal enforcement provisions or authority. This reminds me a little bit of Deepwater Horizon, right? Not installing a $500,000 safety valve, which led to, has it been hundreds of millions or tens of millions or billions? I don't even remember the total costs and settlements for that, but a $500,000 piece could have prevented it all.
Well, the total costs are at least 18.7 billion. In total, it's probably closer to in the 20 billion, maybe $25 billion range. So yes, what is the better business decision? Spending smaller amounts of money to make sure that nothing catastrophic happens, or taking your chances and just assuming that you will that nothing bad will happen?
There's also this concept when you talk about what's fiscally conservative of carried liability, where you say, okay, based on the business decisions I've made, what's the financial value of the liability we're sort of carrying that at any point could blow up in our faces? So you could say, okay, we're saving $500,000 times however many installations of that piece might have been necessary. It could have been hundreds, thousands, I don't know. We're, as a result of not spending that, we're carrying what is essentially tens of billions of dollars of liability here, which if we have this particular incident, we could be liable for. And sometimes you very quickly get to realize that certain types of lack of spending actually aren't very fiscally conservative in terms of the risk that it represents to shareholders, to employees, to families of employees, etc.
Yeah, it's and also, I mean, OSHA, with regard to OSHA, should OSHA have more power?
Yeah.
If you ask small business owners, they would probably say no. But when it comes to larger businesses, I mean, they probably just laugh at OSHA because, what can they really do?
Well, we had this discussion when the sugar burial happened, as insane as it is to call it that, that's what it was, which is, it's evidence that we need stricter enforcement, right? There should have been, maybe it shouldn't be an option to modify your equipment in this way such that it allows for someone to be buried alive by a mountain of sugar. The argument for weaker regulation for business is one that is not backed. It's not backed by logic, but it's also not really backed financially because of the added exposure that businesses have by not taking care of these precautions.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps OSHA should have more power, but we also need just the states to have much stricter regulations.
We have only a little over a week left in our Indiegogo fundraising campaign. Please get your contributions in. We're really trying to take some big steps with the show. These steps will not be possible unless the contributions continue coming in at davidpakman.com/donate. We will have an update on the campaign on Monday.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
For today's classic interview, we're going back to November 19th of 2013. I got a few emails recently saying, hey, have you ever had Sam Seder from the Majority Report on? Will you have him on? You should have him on, etc. We actually did a sort of simulcast with Sam back in November of 2013. We talked about Walmart and Obamacare. We talked about a funny incident involving Lewis also. So we will go back to November 19th of 2013. Sam Seder from The Majority Report, simulcast on The David Pakman Show. Check it out.
All right, we are back. Sam Seder on The Majority Report. This is the fun half, trademarked. On the program, we're doing a simulcast with The David Pakman Show. David, I was under the impression that you were going to interview me. And I also want to know, first off, why don't we start this off? How are we simulcasting? You're not live.
Well, I know that it may be the type of conversation that comes up in your YouTube live chat room. I know that I hear from people who say that people in Sam's chat room are incredibly angry that we're not live. And, I understand that. I know what's going on. We took a break from our live stream to up the production value of our show,
Yeah, okay. You got to get a better mic too, it sounds like.
I need to get a louder mic?
Well, you just sound, you're getting a lot of room ambience.
Wow, I've never heard this before, I have to tell you.
It would make sense that you would hear it from Sam.
Yeah,
as the
of course.
First bearer,
Listen, it may be because we're simultaneous. It's like a triple simulcast because producer Louis Motamedi from the David Pakman Show is joining us from Austin, Texas. Louis, are you doing any of your gaming or stuff like that might be making noise?
I'm quite confident I've got no noise coming from my room or being picked up by my microphone. I have no idea what's going on.
Okay, good.
This is Matt Binder, co-producer of The Majority Report, and I would just like to say Louis is coming in much clearer than David Pakman is.
Definitely.
Okay.
Well, David's in New York City, in Manhattan. I mean, there's just lots of noise there, so that could have something to do with it.
Listen,
it sounds more like he's living under a bridge.
Yeah.
That's right.
Michael Brooks, also from The Majority Report. Lewis sounding strong from Austin.
Okay. Well, I was hoping to kind of talk about the problems right now because alternative media is getting shafted, but it sounds like the problem is I don't have good audio, and that's like the number one problem here. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's one of them. We can put that on the heap. So what else? What else have we got today?
Have you been covering the whole thing that's going on with Walmart and McDonald's and how they're all recommending that their employees donate food to each other and get food stamps, and it's completely broken down the entire big corporations are the drivers of the economy and don't need the government thing?
I have been a little bit. We talked about the story about Walmart yesterday.
Yeah.
And it's, it really is stunning that, the idea that they have to have a canned food drive at Walmart. They could also walk out of the employee room where they're having those bins, and they could walk, probably take a left and then a right, and then walk into the massive store of canned goods that they have in every Walmart across the country. Or they could just simply pay their employees more. But yeah, I mean, I think we have seen this, to me, is a perfect time to be talking about increasing the minimum wage. And even if Walmart is paying its part-time workers $12 an hour, as they claim across the country, this will create some upward pressure on wages. But yes, obviously, this is just one more way in which the government subsidizes big corporations and puts obviously the claim that we made this, that we heard during the campaign to lie. So yeah, it's an important story. I mean, and we've covered it to a certain extent.
Yeah, and then there, piggybacking on that, there was the McDonald's thing where they have like the McHelp line, or call it whatever you want, where their employees call up and they say, I'm having trouble making ends meet. And the official McDonald's position on that is, well, here's how you apply for food stamps, and here's how you apply for Medicaid. And it's just amazing because the justification for keeping the wages low is that, hey, it's a free market, but it's not really, because those wages are subsidized by government programs.
Yeah, I mean, this is this is a story that has been ongoing, and It's on some level, this is what these programs are for: is to help people who can't afford these things. I mean, if anything, it's a very good argument for things like Medicaid and for SNAP, but it also speaks to Walmart is the biggest employer in the country, and it speaks to a larger story, I think, of the depressed wages that most Americans, the vast majority of Americans, have been dealing with over the past 30 years now. So,
speaking of the health insurance component, where are you on this Obama lied about you can keep your plan thing? Because on the one hand, it's true that he did not really offer a very nuanced explanation of what that means. But Salon had an article about it, but corporate media has not talked about the fact that a lot of those plans that now are being canceled are plans that insurance companies continued to offer after they were already told that those weren't going to fly once Obamacare is implemented. They were, people who truly had plans that were grandfathered in are not having this problem. So it's not really fair to say that it was a lie, is it? Where do you fall on this?
Well, I mean, I think it's arguable as to whether or not it's a lie. It's certainly not a lie on the scale of there are no weapons of mass destruction. Let's invade and occupy this country and cause the deaths of anywhere from 200,000 to 800,000 people.
It's not like that, no.
No, and with that said, I think that I can understand why people perceive it as a lie. I think we're also the amount of people, however, that if one does consider it a lie, we're lied to is small. And I think part of it is that the insurance companies kept offering plans that they knew were not compliant. But the fact of the matter is, and I had just mentioned this actually on the close of before we took the break, that you're talking about 17% of the people in the non-group insurance market carry their insurance policies for more than 2 years. This is this for the rest of those 73%, 83% of people, their policies are canceled all the time.
Right.
The difference is in this situation is that when your policy is canceled this time, you're guaranteed to be able to get a new policy, which wasn't the case a year ago. And so I think it's overblown. I think part of the problem is that the website is not functioning. The exchanges are not functioning on a federal level. And so people can't really see what their options are. And then part of it is, the media wants a story, and it's a slow news time. And this is a story to fill that vacuum. I think that, within 3 to 6 months, much of this is going to be largely behind us. I'm still, not necessarily thrilled with the mechanism, but the fact of the matter is that a big part of the Affordable Care Act was the expansion of Medicaid, and this has been a resounding success. In states across the country that have good exchanges, we're also seeing resounding successes. I just had a piece today in California. They're on track to hit their enrollment targets for 2014 because of a huge increase in November.
Yeah, but that's like liberal math. That's like, it's like nobody's signing up and everybody's getting their insurance canceled. That's what I'm hearing on Drudge Report.
Well, yeah. Well, you shouldn't be going on Drudge Report.
Yeah, maybe that's the solution.
That's, this is part of the story. Now, with all that said, we have a Gallup poll that came out today, I believe, that showed, or yesterday, that now 56% of the population believes that the government shouldn't be involved in healthcare. Now, this is a failure in my mind of the Obama administration to to have clearly articulated benefits that everyone is enjoying now.
Oh, not only that though, Sam, but it's also a failure in if you were to in that question say, which by the way includes Medicare, VA care, and any type of Medicaid that is federal, then the numbers would be different because, you know, how many times did we hear get the government off my Medicare?
I would go further. I would say the fact that you can no longer lose your policy after the fact, recidivism, the fact that you can no longer be denied a policy because of pre-existing condition, the fact that you can no longer max out on a yearly cap or a lifetime cap, the fact that there is guaranteed minimums, all of that is government intervention into the healthcare. So, yes, granted, the way that this is framed is you know, sort of plays on people's ignorance about how healthcare works and health insurance works in this country. But you know, you know, those are the cards we're dealt with.
All right, we're basically out of time, Sam, but I want to get Louis just to even just maybe say a little something to you and to Michael and to Matt, because I know that you guys are just big fans of Louis. So Louis, let me let
Matt,
you sign off.
I'm not necessarily. But
Don't speak for everyone, David.
Louis,
right.
please make some kind of a statement to wrap us up. I know that people are waiting.
Oh, it's just nice to hear from you guys. We should do this more often. I wish we could. You know, the group video thing would be a big plus, but I think it's important to communicate it in this fashion. We can, you know, kind of help each other out. Maybe we reach some of your fans, you get some of our fans. You know, works for everybody.
I love it.
That would be great. I don't know. We are fans of Louis. I don't know where there was some like rumor of a feud or something, and I really have no idea where that came from.
It was probably started by some hate online.
Okay, guys, well, listen. We would love to stay. I think everybody is. That was a showstopper, I think, and we're gonna have to, on that note, kind of wrap up. We've been talking to Sam Seder and Michael Brooks and Matt Binder, and of course Louis in Austin, Texas, and I, of course, with the worst mic quality today, apparently. But hey, we'll do what we can. Thanks, Sam.
All right, thank you, David. Always a pleasure. Bye, Louis.
See you guys.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
It's that time of the week, time to answer your questions at the end of the Friday show. Submit them via email, voicemail, 219-2DavidP is the number, Twitter, on our Reddit discussion forum at davidpakman.com/Reddit, which is spelled REDDIT. First question is from Julietta. Julietta says, I find that when I stay abreast of current news and politics, especially news that is sad or frustrating, I get more depressed and overall cynical. I've had to step away from social media, etc. sometimes. My question is whether or not you feel discussing the politically absurd, frustrating, sad, or ridiculous failures of justice stories you do affects your mood or overall outlook on life in general. It seems like there is never a shortage of these, right? In other words, doesn't it get you down some days? If so, how do you come back strong and keep on going? Yeah, there's, I guess, two elements. On the one hand, we cover a lot of bad things that happen pretty regularly. So to a certain extent, Louis, I think you kind of get desensitized to it, where, you know, it should be insane to us that a presidential candidate like Donald Trump talks about how Mexicans are rapists and maybe there are some good people, he assumes, right? That's an insane thing. But it's only kind of crazy because we're constantly hearing these crazy stories. So you do get desensitized a little bit.
I think so. I have friends who, you know, the same thing happens to them. They have to step away. They have to disconnect, if you will. And it just doesn't get to me, perhaps because partially I'm desensitized. But, you know, at some point, I think I just told myself that, look, everything's crap. Everyone is crap. And I just accept that. So I just don't let it get to me. It just doesn't get to me.
You've kind of realigned your expectations to be really, really low so that you're not at least let down constantly.
Yeah, yeah, I guess that's it. Even when we cover good stories, I'm always finding the the bad parts, the bad points. What could go wrong? How is this not a good thing? And it's sad that I've trained myself to do that, but that's just how it is.
I definitely think that there are sometimes stories that are particularly horrible that I do find myself thinking about throughout the day. And, the South Carolina shooting recently was just absolutely horrible. When there is the Charlie Hebdo massacre, there are stories that really I find stick with me during the day. But then a lot of the stories that stick with me are also either positive or just really ridiculous stories. Like I always remember, that ridiculous Chinese news story that we talked about recently where a sex toy was identified as a rare type of mushroom on Chinese television. That's not a negative story. It's sad that it was such terrible journalism, but it's just hilarious, right? So some of those stories also do tend to stick with me longer.
Yes, I find that that stories like that do stick with me for a long time, just as much as some of the really heinous stories where, nasty, nasty child abuse and things like that. They both stick with me. But yeah, at least we do cover some funny things and positive things as well.
There are people who have taken, sometimes as directed by Tim Ferriss's book, The 4-Hour Workweek, but sometimes people come across this idea on their own, sort of a low information diet where they don't really consume news. They kind of say, listen, whatever's going on in Greece or Tunisia or whatever, most of it is not going to affect me. I kind of live a life where I'm not affected by this stuff and I'm just going to end up worrying. And that's kind of my point of view. For me, that kind of willful disconnection from the world around me, even if it's not going to affect me, is difficult to feel good about.
And for other people, I'm sure it works, and maybe it's a good thing for them. I'm not going to speak out against it. For you, I think regardless of whether or not those people think that they are being affected, they are being affected. And they just choose not to realize it. And, it's a defense mechanism. If it works for them, that's fine.
That is a good point. Some of those who say, hey, none of this stuff will ever make a difference to my day-to-day life. As long as I don't watch the news, I'll never be affected by it. It's also not completely accurate, right? Things that are going on in the news that you might ignore could be affecting your job. They could be affecting whether you're able to get care from your local doctor. They could be affecting your relationships with others, travel. I mean, so many things. I think you're right that there is a certain naivete to saying, hey, I don't need to pay attention to news, period, because I'm in my own world and nothing that happens politically or news-wise will ever affect me.
Yeah, it certainly, we're all being affected by what's even small things that are happening in faraway countries. It affects us in ways that, are very hard to see, but it does affect us.
Next question today is from Chrissy. Chrissy says, you've mentioned that you avoid Walmart. What would it take for you to shop there? That's true. I've been to Walmart before, and I've shopped there before I really came to understand why I shouldn't and why it should be avoided. Kind of like I haven't been to a McDonald's in 15 years. I don't know how long it's been since I've been to a Walmart. It's been a while though. Basically, what it would take for me to go to Walmart is if I evaluate what it is that I need, where it's available, and whether going to somewhere other than Walmart to get it would be such a huge inconvenience that it would put me or someone else in a bad situation, I guess I would consider going to Walmart. Every place gets blown up by a tornado, but Walmart is there and I absolutely need to get milk. Yeah, I'll go to Walmart to get milk or figure out a way to go without the milk, I guess. But as a general thing, I do not shop at Walmart, and normal everyday things do not lead to me going to Walmart. I will drive a little bit further if needed. It doesn't really ever come up that I need to drive further to avoid Walmart, but if needed, I would to not go to Walmart.
Yeah, I avoid it. Admittedly, in place of Walmart, I might end up at a Target.
Yeah, and we're not totally sure how much better Target is, right?
Right. I'm assuming not much better, but it's just the convenience of it. Do I want to drive all around Northwest Austin to get 4 different things that I can get at Target? I'm not going to inconvenience myself that much to avoid the big box stores. So if back in Massachusetts, I would occasionally go to Walmart because that's what was closer, that's what was convenient.
Wow.
And I felt pretty disgusting after I did. I admit it, and I don't like it. But we all do things we don't necessarily want to do or like doing or feel good about afterwards.
There is this, there's a group of people I know that used to work at Walmart when we were younger. And I know you're friends with some of the same people, Lewis, in Massachusetts. And the stories they told about what it was like to work there also do a good job of reminding me to stay away. But I do sometimes wonder whether Target is sort of Walmart's slightly less offensive, but 98% as bad cousin or something like that.
I think that's a good way to put it. Yeah, I've never heard anything really positive about Target. So there's that. You'd think if they were treating their employees really well, we'd at least catch some wind of that.
I don't know. I think that after they had a brief run-in with anti-gay decisions, they have been sort of proactively pro-LGBT rights. And yeah, I've got nothing else. I was trying to come up with something, but no, I really just don't know. I just assume Target is not as bad, but I really don't know for sure.
Yeah, we'll have to get some information from the audience on that one. We just, or we could do some internet tube research, that too.
Last question today is from Chloe. Chloe says, do either of you speak other languages? Are you learning other languages? What language would you like to speak? Well, so I'm guessing Chloe doesn't know that my first language is actually Spanish. English is my second language. I moved to the US when I was 5 from Argentina. So I do speak Spanish as my native language, speak it with family, etc. I am currently trying to improve my French. I took French in high school, and I really like the language. And given the similarities to Spanish, I feel like I have sort of a jump start with French. So I've been using this website and mobile phone app Duolingo, which a lot of people may have heard of, to improve my French. And that's what I'm working on now. You know, some would argue the most logical languages to learn are the ones that more people speak, because then you're allowing yourself to communicate with a higher percentage of the people on the planet. I think there's something like, it's either somewhere between 7 and 10 languages where if you speak, you can communicate with 95% of the people on the planet. I'm nowhere close to that, but I am working on my French.
I took French for maybe about as long as David took French. Is that fair? I mean, it's
yeah,
pretty much the same. So, you know, for a little while, I was, you know, at least able to read it, and my accent was okay, and I was getting some knowledge under my belt. It, of course, has almost completely left me over the years. I haven't used it, and I really wish I had taken Spanish, because I think living in the United States, it's just far more useful.
And there are so many countries that speak Spanish that you might travel to. I mean, I recognize that French is not the most widely spoken language. It's not even in the top 10, I think, but I do like it. And I think already speaking Spanish and English, I don't know, I just really like French.
Yeah, I don't regret it. I mean, I learned a lot, and still having some knowledge of French can help you understand things that you might be reading in other languages like Spanish or other Romance languages.
Not to mention that there are many words in the English language that originate from the French.
Yes, definitely. And so I don't speak any other languages, but I know some French, and that's the answer.
I think it would be great, Lewis, if as an experiment you went on Duolingo and you just picked a language. It could be Spanish, but it could be something else. It could be Swedish. I mean, whatever you want. And we could just kind of chart your progress and get updates from you about how it's going. I mean, you would only have to do about 10 minutes a day. And it's actually a really, really good website. The way it's designed, it's almost game-like.
Well, I'm a pretty busy guy, so I don't know if I can dedicate that amount of time to it. And do I really need to do it? You want me to pick a random language? I mean,
well, I mean, it might seem random, but you would have some reason to pick it.
Well, I don't think it would be Swedish then.
There you go.
Maybe Mandarin. We'll see.
All right. I don't know if that's on Duolingo. They don't have every language, but that would be interesting to see. Okay, get your questions in for the Friday show. We will be wrapping up the $50,000 Indiegogo fundraising campaign to expand the show in any number of compelling ways within a little more than a week. So go to davidpakman.com/donate. Get your donations in. We really appreciate the over 500 donors that have already contributed, well over 500 at this point. And I hope to bring you good news about the campaign very soon.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.